TechTale 71. Today is Wednesday, June 30th, 2021 at 6:10 a.m. Reading a time slip from June 22nd, 34 minutes, from 3:16 p.m. to 3:50 p.m. for the Law Office Whiskey. Working with Charlie in that office, phone and remote connection, fixed sound on Juliet's computer by disconnecting headset which had fallen behind the computer, installed Zoom application on Charlie's laptop, and provided orientation for using it while connected remote to the office computer. So a couple comments there. In a previous time slip, I think it was yesterday, that I reported with Juliet's computer about the speakers not working, and I thought the headset had fallen behind, and when Charlie was in the office, yes, indeed, that's what happened. When I was playing a sound through the computer, she said she could hear it. She had to kind of fish around to figure out where it's from, and then found the headset behind the computer. This office is mostly working from home, not still because of COVID. I think just because they found that they can do it, and it kind of works. Now, on Charlie's laptop, what inspired or what triggered this time slip, we knew that when she was next in the office that she was going to call me and we were going to try to fix the camera for Zoom on her laptop because she said it wasn't working. So here, when I connected to her laptop, it just worked. I'm suspecting that she was trying to use Zoom from the browser, from a web browser, and I just went straight ahead to install the application and didn't have to do anything to make the camera work. So I don't really know what was going wrong with her with the camera, but she did not previously have the Zoom application installed on the laptop. So then that same day, on Tuesday, June 22nd, 2 hours, 16 minutes, for the Law Office Papa from 4:09 p.m. to 7:10 p.m. This was on site. For Mike, Quebec, troubleshoot issue with phone voicemail, finding that due to the phone coming from Visalia, it does not respond to the same configuration settings in Avaya IP. Avaya IP Office Manager is the name of the software. Determine correct method and remove the passcode for accessing voicemail and documented for future use. And then for Romeo, in the same office, same time slip, discussed status of periodic computer sluggishness, determined to replace network adapter and provide long Ethernet for testing. And then for Whiskey, Bravo Whiskey, discussed various issues and disabled news and features. Then a portion of the time slip labeled as backups, I swapped the backup drives, checked the status of new activation for a handy backup license, resent request to support. Reconfigured backup jobs for alternate drives. Okay, so there's quite a bit in there that has some interesting additional information. The voicemail issue, I said that it was due to the IP phone coming from Visalia. Well, their main office is in Fresno. They have also had office in Madera and Visalia. Currently, they don't have those satellite offices anymore, but they have essentially what amounts to a VPN connection from Fresno to Visalia when they had that office through their internet service provider. So they have a name for it. I don't know that part of the industry well enough to say it, but when the Visalia office connects to the internet service provider, there's some kind of a persistent connection between, I'll call them routers or modems, in the two offices, where the Visalia office would pick up IP addresses from the Fresno office router because the connection is that persistent. When they turn on the computer in Visalia, it's just instantly connected to the local area network in Fresno. Exists on the same IP range. Not true. Sorry, that's not right. It is a different IP subnet, but the routing of the two IP subnets happens over that persistent communication through the internet. I don't understand that very well. I understood it better back then. That we ended that, I don't know, 5-7 years ago. So all the phones that were in that office were brought into the Fresno office. They look identical from the top of the phone. But when you turn the phone over, there's an extra RJ45 jack. RJ45 is the designation for the Ethernet connector. You know, it looks like a big fat phone jack. Well, there's an extra port on the phone. The way those phones are designed is that you take the Ethernet from the wall, connect it to the phone, plug an Ethernet into the second port on the phone, and that connects to the computer. And those ports on the phone are labeled for internet or wall, and the other one is labeled somehow computer. I think that's just a logo emblem to identify which is which, and can be tricky if you don't know that's what you're looking for. So anyway, this phone in the Fresno office is wired that way. Wire comes from the wall to the phone and then to the computer. Whereas the other phones have their own Ethernet port on the wall, and that goes to a different switch in the networking room. Well, these phones are managed differently. They still show up in the Avaya IP Office Manager software, but when you change settings in the Avaya IP Office software, it can have a different effect. There's a different place to deal with the voicemail setting. So anyway, I figured that out and got it working. So the reason for this additional time slip is that they had notified me, and I don't have a time slip documenting this, but they had notified me that she was still having to punch in the passcode, even though I had made that change that I described in the prior time slip. So that was the part about the phone. The next part is, the periodic sluggishness for Romeo. So this computer, she's the one I had reported weeks ago, I think, on a time slip that she was asking for permission to install a third-party security software, and turns out the reason is because the computer is occasionally sluggish. So I've had conversations with her. I asked her to contact me when it happens. I had a follow-up conversation with her while I was in the office this day, and she said, yeah, it's still happening a lot. I'm sorry I haven't called you because I've been busy when it happens. Okay, fine. I'm not going to let her, I'm not going to impose any, guilt trip on her for that. I understand people have to get their work done, and she didn't want to take time out to call me. Totally understandable. But I said, okay, we gotta figure out a way to stop this productivity interference for you. So we discussed a little bit, and I told her, this has been on my mind, is that office, that physical office, has had similar reports from users with different computers. So I'm suspicious, and I have been suspicious for a while, that there might be something in the wiring between the jack in the office to the network switch. Now, I can't say it was a problem between the wall jack in the office, because that office doesn't have a wall jack. It's a floor jack. This office used to be a conference room. So there was a floor jack for Ethernet that would be able to run a wire right up through the conference table, which had a nice connector built into the table so that you didn't have a wire strung across the floor. Well, that floor jack has been kicked, stepped on, has had, trauma. So I'm really suspicious that that's the problem. I also have a suspicion it might be the Ethernet, the integrated Ethernet adapter that's built into the motherboard, because another person in the office had a similar intermittent problem, and I just installed a replacement network card and the problems went away. So I ordered a network card and I have a long cable with me. I'm going to give her both of those resources. Just install the network card, connect the long cable from her computer to the floor jack, leave all that cable spooled up there, and tell her when you have trouble, if you have any more trouble, just unplug that from the floor and pull it over across 2 offices and plug directly into the network switch and see if the problem is resolved. So that's those two actions should determine whether the problem is with the Ethernet adapter built into the motherboard or something to do with the cabling. I could do those 2 things one at a time, but I just want to implement both of them and get her work interference, work productivity fixed as soon as possible. Then with Williams discussed various issues. I didn't elaborate on the issues, so I'm not going to provide details, swap the backup drives. Yeah. So that looks like a good coverage for this episode. I hope that was useful. Have a great day. Catch you later. Goodbye.